Well, welcome back everyone. My name is Mike, and as you probably know, my channel is called Build or Buy It. My current project that I'm working on is this shop-built gantry crane. So go back and check out those previous episodes or builds. I'm going to pick back up right where I left off in the last episode, and I showed you that I had it set up here in the shop, kind of mocked up. So I'll kind of explain how I've got it in the position I do so that it makes sense. On the floor, I just measured out the A-frame width was already fixed because those were welded, so I measured those out, and then I measured the distance between there and over here what I wanted it to be, which was, as I mentioned, it's wider than my door, so that way I can just have them nested there and I can still pull stuff in and out without it being in the way. I measured that on the floor, measured it corner to corner to get those basically a rectangle on the floor that matches the footprint. Just made a couple sharpie marks on there, brought those pieces in, stood them upright, knocked them around until the base plates lined up with those corner marks. Then I put a couple of these angle braces on here so they wouldn't fall, and then slowly I'd loosen the vice grips, lean this in and out until I had it plumb with a level, and lock the vice grips down. So right now they're both sitting in there perfectly plumb, square with each other, everything's good to go. I took a measurement from the inside edge of that bracket to the opposite bracket, and that works out to be 134 inch 5/16. So I'll take you outside now, and I've got the I-beam set up outside, and we're going to get that torch to length and then try and set it into position. So this here in the background, that's a piece of I-beam I picked up from my scrap steel supplier. You probably wonder why would that be in the scrap steel, because it's probably, well, the chalk line here is right here, so this is 134 inches, and there's got to be another, which is like, you know, almost, well, 10 inches short of 12 feet, plus there's got to be almost another 4. So that's probably a 15-foot long plus I-beam that's in really nice shape. So I can only speculate why it was at a scrap place. Either somebody went out of business, or I think probably what it is this very end of it. On the back side you can't see, there's a lot of markings as far as exact dimensions and things that I think this was cut to. And then this corner took a hit and is bent a little bit, and then down about 6 inches it's got a little bit of a roll to it. So I suspect this piece was cut for a specific location to the correct length. It got dropped or whatever and got bent, so they had to make a new piece, so it ended up at the scrap place, which is all the better for me because I paid a whole lot less for that as scrap than I would if I have to buy that brand new. So I'm just going to cut this to length with a torch. I'll get the torch out here, set you up at a little bit better angle, and we'll get this thing cut. And I did measure twice. That's definitely something you don't want to measure once and cut once and end up cutting it short and then wasting a very expensive piece of steel. So I'll grab a grinder, get this cleaned up a little bit, and then figure out a way to rig it up. I'll probably have to put my jib boom attachment on the tractor, so I can't remember. You guys saw that on the trailer build, but that's probably how I'm going to pick it up and set it in there, so I'll be back here in a few minutes. All right, give you a quick close-up here. All right, I'll go get the jib hooked up and be right back. You can see that went, I guess, fairly smooth. It's a little tight clearance-wise, but didn't bang anything, didn't dent my door being setting up there. So I got some chores to go do, and then I'll come back and I probably bumped those a little out of plumb. I'll get things plumbed back up again and then tack it in place. Okay, so all I've done is added a ratchet strap right here to suck the two ends in. Not that they were trying to spread out, but that way everything's as tight as it can be up there. So I'm gonna, hopefully my lead on the wire feed will reach there. If not, I'll have to figure out a way to raise the welder up and get those tacked in a little bit, and then we'll be ready to put the capsters on. Alright, so that gets it top beam welded on. I'll get all these braces taken off and straps taken off and bring you back when I'm ready to put the casters on. So as you can see, I'm just lifting up the one end there so I can get the casters put in place. Well, apparently I don't know how to count because I needed 16 bolts and I only had 8 that I picked up at the hardware store the other day. So I will go grab some more bolts and be back. Okay, so I forgot to hit record when I did the other set of casters, but it was basically the same thing. I just brought the tractor in, used the jib boom to lift it up the appropriate amount, slid the casters under it. So it is basically complete. As I mentioned, until it gets a little bit warmer, I'm not going to paint it. So I'll get the trolley mounted and the winch mounted, excuse me. And then I'll bring something in here and it's fairly heavy and lift it, and then maybe put a tape measure down here in between the two casters. And that way I can measure it. As I put weight on it, we'll see if these actually deflect out any or not. I don't think they're going to move at all, but we'll see. So let me unbuckle your, actually I'll give you a little bit of a walk through here, but one of the reasons why, if you recall, I mentioned I didn't want a tie bar there. Not that I couldn't step over it, but then if you stack things around, it just makes it more difficult to move. And this height, even though I can't walk under it directly, I literally don't have to bend over hardly at all to just step through. So that just makes it a little bit more convenient to work around. So let me unclip you here and get a little bit closer look. So got the casters on. Got the beam on. It rolls. I'll push it around here a little bit. It rolls quite easy with those big casters, as I suspected it would. Don't have to push hardly at all. I haven't. Let's see. Wait. You can see here that was that's this piece here is that spring affair in there that lets it follow the ground if the ground nut isn't perfectly even. So that's pressed down about halfway. So my guess is when a person puts any kind of a load at all on it, it's probably going to compress those down all the way, which is fine because then it'll hit the mechanical stop and you don't have to worry about anything shifting. So anyway, I'm really close. I'll probably have my son come over and give me a hand on the trolley and the winch, or I might put on, I don't think you guys have seen that. Don't think, anyway, I might show you another thing I built quite a while ago, an attachment for the tractor that goes on the quick detach, because I don't want to try to balance on a ladder and put that trolley up there, so I'll either have him come over and help me, and I'll do it from the tractor bucket, or I'll probably actually just show you this other thing I built. It's basically a cage or a man basket that lets you work like it would be a scissor lift. So I'll bring you back to that, and we'll get the trolley on there, and then we will test it out. Okay, so I put the man basket or cage on the quick detach on the tractor and got it set up there. You'll see how it works here in a second. And I thought I'd show you, if you weren't aware of what a trolley is or how it works. I'll show you the trolley here. Basically, this top shaft is really long to account for several different beam widths. So you just add and remove shims and spacers until the space between these two rollers matches the width of the I-beam flange, and then you tighten it all down. So I pre-measured all that and got the shims set to the right length, so I don't have to mess with it when I'm up there. So. Okay, that went pretty smooth. Putting the winch or the hoist itself up there is going to be a little bit more of a challenge. I'll show you that here. That's the guy that goes up there. Let's see, I'll put my foot in here so you get a feel for how big it is. Yeah, way heavier than what I want to try to lift right now with my back. So I'll either wait till I can get a hand for my son, or I might even put the jib attachment back on the tractor and lift it up there, but then I'd have to work off the ladder. So anyway, I'll figure something out, and once I decide how I'm going to get it up there and get it attached, I'll bring you back and film that, and then that will pretty much, other than paint when it warms up, that'll pretty much complete this project. So I'll be back here in a few. Okay, so we're going to make an attempt here at hanging the hoist. Instead of trying to manhandle that up onto that platform that Jacob's on, I actually, with the bucket, I could roll that cage all the way down to where it's laying flat on the ground, and then just strapped the hoist to the cage, and then when I roll the bucket back up, that put it up there where it belongs. So a lot easier than trying to manhandle it up there. Well, that didn't go too bad, so I'll bring you back here in a few minutes, show you a couple other things. Well, as you can see, I'm outside. I caught a bit of a break, and we got a day with actually some warm enough weather to get this thing painted. So instead of having to show it to you, who knows, several weeks or a month from now, I was able to go ahead and, I'm able to go ahead and get it painted, and so I'll be able to finish it up in this episode. The only thing I've done off camera that I didn't show you was up here, right there. And on the same thing, the other side, I welded on a piece of angle iron that I'll string a cable across with some either little rollers or just some rings that the power cable will daisy chain on. So then as I move the trolley back and forth, sorry about the wind, as I move the trolley back and forth, that cable won't be drooping down and dragging on the ground. So I'm gonna get the paint mixed up and we'll start shooting it. quart of this.
Just one of these?
Yep, just one of those.
Just this size?
Yep, and a quart of this. Snap to it. If they don't have a quart, a gallon's fine.
Okay.
Hopefully the sun glare wasn't too bad. I'll move you here. That's just coat number 1. Given there was no primer on it, doesn't cover the best. This is just farm and implement paint. So I'll give it a chance to flash. Thought a quart would be enough, but it's going to be close. So my wife is going to run into my local North 40 and grab me another coat or another quart. So I think it's easier to work from the ladder, so I'm going to pull that trailer out of the way and work the top beam from the ladder again. I mean, you see me rolling the trolley back and forth. I wasn't running it through the paint. I actually don't want any paint on the portion of the beam that the trolley runs on, because otherwise the wheel, it would get sticky, the wheels would pick up the paint. So I'll come back later and put some graphite on that. So I kind of kept the angle so that the bottom flange created a shadow area, so I don't paint that upper portion of the bottom flange. So I'll bring you back here as soon as I'm ready to do second coat. Alright, so there it is. I'll give you a little bit of a close-up. Keep in mind this is just farm implement paint, so it does not like it's super, lays out super flat, but all right, so I'll come back here with a cost wrap up and we'll be done with this series. Alrighty, as you guys know, the painting is done. Pretty much everything other than that cable I talked about that's going to help keep the cords from getting tangled up. I have that left, but that's a very minor thing. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a cost wrap up here. And then I'm also going to show you, we'll do a lift. And then I'll kind of devise a way to let you see if there's any deflection when I put some weight on it. So let's do the cost wrap up first. I want to talk about the casters some. As you know, I have those, but I think on other projects what I'm going to do is, in some cases they truly cost me nothing, but on a lot of times, like if I use some scrap metal I have around here in the shop, I usually have had to purchase that at some point. So what I'm going to do moving forward is figure out what it would have, either what I probably paid for it at the time, I'll make a best guess, or what it would cost to buy it. So in the case of the casters that I used, these casters here, I clearly would never have went out and purchased casters to that quality for this. I mean, who knows what those cost at the time. But I did go online and looked up a quality set of casters that are swivel and a pivot, swivel with brakes on, which these don't have. And that each one of those are rated for 1,100 pounds. So I could have bought 4 of those. So we'll swing over here. So I could have got 4 of those casters online. Oop, looks like my dry erase board is still a little wet. Stand by. So I could have bought those casters for about $140. So casters, if anybody buys casters, I mean, you can get some cheap ones out there, but decent ones are not cheap. The paint supplies, so the thinner, strainers, that stuff, that was 75 bucks. The I-beam itself, I think I talked about it in the video. I found that at a local steel supplier. It's actually a recycler, and when they get in material that's resellable, they just put it out in their yard. You can pick through whatever you want, and it's a flat cost per pound. And so the cost for that piece of I-beam was $85, which is a good buy, because if I had to buy that new, it would be a lot more than that. The pieces of pipe that I made the kind of the trusses out of, Those, again, those I bought those off Marketplace. A guy had those for sale, and that was $160 for those pieces of pipe. I had some plate, like the plate I used to mount those to, some of the reinforcing plate on the I-beam, those things. I just made a ballpark guess that the miscellaneous steel that I used was probably $50 worth, give or take. So that puts me at a grand total of $510. I did not count the trolley or the chain hoist, because those you don't get those when you buy a gantry crane. You just get the frame. I can't remember. I know I got a really good buy on those, but that's aside from this. So I went online and looked, and of course you can buy lots of gantry cranes. Harbor Freight sells one. Northern Hydraulics. There's some of those El Cheapo, I guess for lack of a better term, ones. The cheapest one I could find was $569. That doesn't count tax or anything else. That's just what the list price was. But you get what you pay for. Those were hoists that were rated. This has official rating, but what I would feel more than comfortable picking with. It was similar, but very thin tubing, just, as you can imagine, pretty cheesy. So to look, because this is custom made to the way I wanted it, there isn't really anything out there I could compare it to, but I did look to try to find some that I felt were as similar quality, similar weight, similar materials. And the cheapest one, and I'm being conservative here, the cheapest one I found was $1,000. So that means I just realize that this is probably backwards for you guys, so have fun reading it. So at any rate, ballpark, I figure I can conservatively save myself $500 off of buying it. So in this case, build it or buy it. It clearly made sense to build it. I was able to build it to a dimension wider than what you're typically going to be able to find to accommodate it fitting in the shop. So I'll get Pan back here, kind of show you how I plan on storing it in the shop, and then we will do a lift with it and see what happens. So just to give you kind of an idea, I don't know if I talked about it. I don't think I did. Maybe I did. But because you can see here in the shop, it's kind of hard to tell from the angle because the door is farther away, so it's just a weird, it's not as much space as you think. But it clearly is wider than my door, so I can have it positioned where I want anywhere in this bay, up and down. It won't interfere too much with getting the things in my cubbies, but it is what it is. So my overall width ended up being, so I could drive something between this. Come on, tape measure, cooperate. Somebody ever invents a tape measure that doesn't like to flop over, they would be sitting on a beach somewhere drinking a Mai Tai. So we are at 128 inches, so 10 feet 8 inches. So I gave myself roughly 6 inches on each side of my door. So overall height ended up being, I almost worried when I rolled it outside because I was pretty confident in my measurements, but I went to roll it out, I thought it was going to hit the door, but I had about 3/4 of an inch clearance with the door all the way open. And frankly, I'm probably going to leave it at this height, but there are spots where if I brought it back farther and it cleared the overhead door track, I hate that, the overhead door track, then I can raise it up a little bit more, and then if I use it outside, I can raise it even more. But I'll probably just leave it here for now, and if I ever need to raise it, so be it. I will actually flip so that you can show that I'm not going to try to pause it or anything else. So I've got as you can see, a 1x there, and I've got it clamped to this wheel parallel with the end, or parallel with the mounting plate. It's clamped so it can't move. I'm not going to move it. Just keep rolling here. And then around on this end, what I've got going on is a mark there that lines up on the board, and I put a little mark on that one bolt. So I'm not going to undo any of that or turn the camera off. What that'll do then is if that deflects, or if those ears spread out any, that mark will move. That board, of course, is only clamped on one end. Get my camera to latch here. So if these legs spread out this way, that board obviously will stay fixed, and that line will will change. So my ATV here, I looked it up, the specs on it. I don't need to pick this old mailbox. Not that it weighs anything. And according to the specs online, this was 606 pounds with nothing in it, empty. It's got some fuel in it. It's got a winch on the front. I really haven't added anything. There's a little light mount there for when I plow. So it's maybe 610, 615 pounds. I wanted to test it to 1,000 pounds, which is what that chain hoist will pick. But I really didn't have anything that I knew was, or at least accurately, was close to 1,000 pounds. So I'm gonna pick this. That's the best, next closest thing I got, which will probably satisfy anything that I will ever pick. It'll pick an engine pretty easy, maybe on the second gen Cummins. If I ever pull the motor out of that, probably wouldn't, that's gonna be more than that, but I think it would still pick it just fine. If I got anything heavier than that, I'll just use the tractor outside. So anyway, without further ado, let me scoot you back a little more so you can get a better view, and then I'll give you a close-up of that board after I pick it. I don't have any weight on it. You can see the chain is plenty loose. There's the suspension, the rough country suspension on those casters, it was about, I think I mentioned it was about halfway down on that little quadrant that lets it swing on an arc. So obviously, as soon as I pick some weight, it's going to squat down. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that. It'll squat down that last quarter of an inch or so until it reaches the end of that slot. That's not the deflection of anything. That's just the suspension in the casters. So let's give it a pick here and see what happens. What I might do is I'll scoot you back in here closer without stopping recording. I'll show you the caster, and that way I'll pick it up a little bit and then I'll set it back down so you might be able to see that. Remember, that's this portion right here. So you'll see that movement a little bit. You've probably seen there where it's squatted down. That's just that suspension, or for lack of a better term, suspension. So we'll move you back here. And I do have it offset on purpose. The ATV's over to one side because I wanted to kind of bias that weight over here to put as much, I could probably scoot it over a little bit. In fact, after I pick it, I'll see how easy the trolley moves. And that kind of puts more weight right there on that frame to see how much deflection there would be. So there we go. The ATV is 100% off the ground, as you can see. And I will unhook you without stopping the recording. And walk you over here carefully. I got you lined up as best I can, and there might have moved maybe a 64th of an inch, if that. So I'm going to call that a win for zero deflection. Nobody really expressed concern about there not being a crossbar, but clearly it shows that I don't need it. And if I ever did have something towards a deflection, I could always just put a chain across there to make it a temporary thing. So let's see how easy it'll roll on the I-beam. That rolls nice. I barely pushed. Barely pushed. In fact, you can kind of see I give it a little push, it'll roll a little bit by itself. So I'm super happy with the way it turned out. So that'll finish it up for this episode and this series on the Gantry crane, home built in the shop. I think the next episode I have everything I need is I'm going to build a set of forks on a quick detach plate for the tractor instead of the clamp-on forks that I have now for the bucket. So please give me your comments, what you thought of this project. If you guys have anything that you'd like me to see me build, throw it out there. If it's something I could use, I might build it. And I do appreciate you liking and subscribing and ringing that bell and all that stuff that everybody talks about on YouTube. So please take a minute to do that. It only takes a second. And I will see you in the next episode. Thanks.